I don't know. I think it's a little bit premature to declare a victory like that. And it's important, I think, to realize that victory will feel like that. Victory does feel like self-abolition. The point of the dissident right is to abolish the mainstream right to the point where it can't come back in any meaningful way. That's the grand unified point, and also to abolish centrism of the Adam and Sitch variety, to prove definitively how impotent it is, and what a scam it is. Because movements that aren't trying to abolish themselves are scams. At some point, you have to say to yourself, okay, I understand the point you're making. We've got to move on to the next thing. I understand that the social justice warriors are stupid. I understand that Bosch uses dishonest arguments. I understand that those wokies are crazy. I understand that, we need fiscal responsibility in the case of the normie Republicans. But this is not something that, your business model as a centrist or as a Republican is to maintain this outrage indefinitely and not come to the inevitable conclusions that the dissident right was pushing. The dissident right's main contributions to the mainstream was to show, A, there is a consistent leftward force in history, of which the Republican Party and the mainstream right is part of. Not only that, they have very recently, as soon as the 60s, fully embraced the underlying logic and arguments that have directly led to the wokeist explosion and to the modern left as it exists today. 2, or 3, I can't remember what exact point I'm on, this domination by leftist ideology can absolutely smash any mainstream right-wing position that's brought against it. It's designed to do that because most of the things that it relies on to facilitate its growth are either are embraced by the right already, as previously mentioned, or rely on certain pieces of wrong things, certain things that you can't publicly say, such as, the civil rights movement in many ways was a huge mistake. Or I should say, a lot of things that came out of the civil rights movement were huge mistakes. You can quibble over which ones. But an enormous amount of the logic that came out of that period was totally mistaken about the nature of how America worked and how minority communities could actually be helped. And not to mention questions about demographics and statistical differences between groups, which is always and forever the third rail of politics for the right. All of these things, all the things that could lead away from leftist conclusions in a meaningful way, are all anathematized. They're all either contained inside dialectics that naturally favor the left because the left is handing out goodies, or they're sort of hidden behind taboos. They're hidden behind scare words like fascist, racist, reactionary. And, anyone who exists inside this dialectic and plays by its rules is inevitably just going to be part of the leftist apparatus, part of the body of Cthulhu that's consistently moving left. And in order to be meaningfully distant, in order for it to be meaningfully disentangled from the left's project, what you need to do, both in style and in content, is just to make a hard break with the assumptions, all assumptions of the liberal world order. It's to reject them outright. It's not to say that every single conclusion that comes from a liberal's mouth is wrong necessarily. It's not to say that the virtues that the men of the Enlightenment pursued were false, or even necessarily that some of the tools they were using aren't useful and couldn't be incorporated into something new that comes about. But it's to say that the mode of their thought, the propositions that they made about value-neutral societies, about people organizing themselves in terms of self-government, apropos of no guiding religion, framework, or king. The idea that you could just wave a magic wand and perfectly integrate America, or that the integration itself wouldn't immediately melt away the distinctiveness, the richness, and the functionality that we recognized from the old world. All of these things, all of these modes of thought have serious problems with them and need to be rejected outright. And because of that, participation in the system to a certain degree has to be walked away from. This is the ultimate message of the dissident right.